Okay, for this last section involving fractions and mixed numbers, we're going to focus on mixed numbers. So operations on mixed numbers. So we're going to learn how to first plot them on a number line, but then multiply, divide, add, and subtract. Okay? So for topic one, we're going to look at plotting numbers on a number line. So it says locate the location of the number on the number line that represents each number, and then mark the location with a dollar or an X. We've plotted stuff on number lines before, so this shouldn't be super brand new to you. So example one, it says plot each number on the provided number line. So for part A, we have -5, -4.5, -1/2, 2 3/4, 3 1/2. Okay? So when it comes to this, you don't have to be like overly precise. It's not like we expect you to pull out a ruler and measure, but you do want to eyeball these as closely as you can. Okay. Now, something like -5, that's really easy. We just want to go 5 units to the left of 0. It happens to be exactly on this number line, so there's not really much to it. That one's easy. Now, for -4.5, when you're on the negative side of the number line, you have to be really careful how you plot these. -4.5 is less than 4 but greater than 5, or well, less than -4 but greater than -5. So we want to plot halfway between -4 and -5. So let's do this one in blue, and we'll say this is -4.5. Okay. Now for -1/2, that's halfway between 0 and -1. Okay. So let's plot this one in green. So halfway between 0 and -1 would be right about here. So we're going to say this is -1/2. Now, for +2 3/4, this is going to be between +2 and +3, but it's more than halfway. So this is actually halfway between 2.5 and 3. So let's kind of look at this one. Let's do this one in red. So between 2 and 3, let's break this into 4 pieces. So we have, this would be 2 1/4, 2.5, 2 3/4, and 2 4/4, which would be 3. So we want to plot 2 3/4, which would be this one right here. So we're going to call that 2 3/4. And then finally, we want to plot 3.5. So +3.5 is going to be between 3 and 4, halfway between. So between 3 and 4, we'll split it in half. And we plot that, and we're going to call this one 3.5. Okay, so again, it's not like you have to pull out a ruler and make sure you measure exactly the tick mark in between these two, either positive or negative numbers, but you do want to eyeball it as closely as you can. So that's plotting mixed numbers and whole numbers, or integers, we'll say, on a number line. Okay, so let's look at part B. So for part B, we have -4 1/3, we have -3, -9/10, 1 3/8, and 5. So kind of the same idea, but these numbers are maybe a little harder to work with, like 9/10 and 3/8. Okay? So let's look. We have to start -4 1/3. Okay? Well, -4 1/3 is going to be between -4 and -5. So we want to split that region between -4 and 5 into 3 pieces. So we would say this is, let's go back to black. We would say this is -4 1/3, -4 2/3, and then -5 is -4 3/3. Okay, so we want to plot -4 1/3, and then we'll just label it. So there you have it. Pretty easy, not too bad. All right, for the next one, let's plot in red. So we have -3. That happens to be exactly on this number line, so that one's pretty easy. So we'll just plot -3, and I don't really need to label it since it's already labeled on the number line. Next, we have -9/10. Well, this is a proper fraction, which means it's less than 1. So when you're looking at -9/10, it's going to be between 0 and -1. So let's get a new color. Let's do green. So I'm not going to split this region into 10 pieces because that would be like these little tick marks that almost touch each other. But if I'm going between 0 and -1, technically I would split that into 10 pieces. And that would put me really close to -2. Or whoa, not -2, -1. Bless my heart. I hope you all caught that and we're like screaming at home. So between 0 and -1, we would technically split that into 10 pieces, okay? And we want to get that ninth one, which would be really close to -1. Okay? Now for the next one, let's use blue. So we have 1 3/8. So 1 3/8 is going to be more than 1, less than 2. So it's going to be between +1 and 2. So if we look between positive 1 and 2, we would want to split that into 8 pieces. So it's going to be a little hard to do on this number line, but if we split it in half, that would be 1 and 4/8. Okay, so halfway between 1 and 2 would be 1.5, which is 1 and 4/8. So we want to go just a little bit shy of that, and that would be 1 and 3/8. That's supposed to be a 3. It looks kind of silly. Let me redo that. And then finally, we have just positive 5. Let's do that one in purple. So positive 5 is actually on the number line, so I don't need to label it. Okay, so if you were to do something like this on paper for me, it doesn't have to be exact, but you want to eyeball it as close as you can. Okay, so stuff like 1/2, 1/3, 3/4, those are pretty easy. When you get into stuff like 9/10, 3/8, just be as careful as you can and try to eyeball it the best you can. Okay, so that is plotting integers and mixed numbers on a number line.